School threats seem to skyrocket in the past few months, leading to local law enforcement proving that they take them seriously. We've also been tracking homicides in Duval County as they dropped during 2024, walking hand in hand with policing agencies to prevent crime or to prosecute it. We're speaking today with State Attorney Melissa Nelson on This Week in Jacksonville. Yeah, she's the state attorney for Florida's 4th Judicial Circuit, which includes Nassau, Duval, Clay counties. And Melissa Nelson ran on a platform of reforming the office 8 years ago. Something must have gone right because voters have sent her back to begin a 3rd term in office. Joining us today for our program, Melissa Nelson. We were just chatting about it's been too long since we've had you on our show to talk about things. So thank you for being here. And I guess I want to start with this strong warning this week that you had in local law enforcement leaders about this game that some teens are playing. It's called Senior Assassin. It involves using water guns to shoot other students until the last student or team is left standing. Usually happens outside of school times. And so this past Wednesday, an 18-year-old Bishop Kenny student was shot in the arm by an off-duty FDLE agent in Nassau County. Investigators saying that the student had this water gun. And the agent noticed 3 people prowling around outside her home in the dark, didn't know they were students playing the Senior Assassin game. Thankfully, that student is expected to recover. So, Melissa Nelson, your message this week, it was that this could seem like a fun game, but this is not a game that anybody needs to be playing.
Not right now, not in the way that these kids are playing the game. So, as I understand it, this game has been around now for 20-something years. It really took off and became popularized in 2010 on social media. My own daughter, who's a freshman in college, played last year. And in fact, last year...
Without your knowledge, I'm guessing.
No.
With your knowledge.
And because of the work that we do and because of what I understood was going on, I knew this was wrought with potential danger. And in fact, got with JSO last year, and JSO pushed out a public service announcement asking people to be smart about how to play this game for this very reason, because people can't distinguish a water gun from a real gun in the early morning hours. Yeah. And these kids are sometimes dressing in masks and fatigues and crawling in people's bushes, their garages. Obviously, it goes without saying that creates a really dangerous environment. And so thankfully, this student is going to live. But everybody involved in this tragic incident is traumatized from it. So our purpose on Thursday and holding the press conference was really to, one, educate the public and ask schools and parents to be smart about how they go about it. I've learned that this game can be played with different rules of engagement, and some, when we were discussing some, are really well built with safety rules and precautions to prevent something like this. Others all across the nation have ended up in serious consequences. Kids running from assassins who end up in traffic collisions, kids chasing targets who end up getting hurt, Good Samaritans not appreciating that it's a game and intervening with firearms. So it's just fraught with danger the way it's currently being played. All the high schools in this circuit, I understand many of them are playing. This just recently started, so I'm hopeful, as tragic as this week's event was, that it will be a call to arms for people to be smart about this.
Yeah, terrible that an 18-year-old was shot, but as you pointed out, going to live, thank God, going to live.
Thank God.
Because it could be a completely different kind of tenor of our conversation today if someone had been killed there. Is there advice to other students or parents or what have you that say, well, we're still going to do this?
Sure. Sheriff Waters said really well during that press conference that we all recognize kids want to have fun, and kids are immortal. Right? They don't appreciate the dangers of this. This is about fun. This is about eliminating their classmates and winning a prize at the end. But obviously, as adults, as homeowners, and appreciating the dangers that are fraught with this game, really the advice is to be smart. Yesterday, I have a freshman who was pretty upset that we were going to be publicly talking about this because he wants to play the game his senior year. And I said, well, maybe think about how to play it in a way that's safe. Maybe ask to lead a work group at your school where you can change the rules of engagement. And I think that's what's important. Kids shouldn't be masking up. They shouldn't be jumping
Right.
in the back of cars. They shouldn't be prowling in someone's bushes. This is a different day. It's absolutely a different day. Our houses are outfitted with cameras. That's actually what alerted this homeowner that there were what she believed to be prowlers in her yard. So we just have to be, and our kids have to be smart about it. And as parents, as elected officials who can give voice to it, and administrators of schools, we really need to be the leaders in making sure that our kids are safe.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for all of you who this week said, hey, here's the perfect time. Let's talk about this now and make sure that we can hopefully avoid any kind of tragedy down the line.
You know, we saw every police chief and sheriff that participated in the press conference across 3 counties in their own communities are dealing with this issue.
Yeah, Sheriff Leeper calling it dumb, among other things. Pretty serious about, I guess, condemning the practice that leaves it unsafe for teens. All right, I definitely wanted to talk about some of the successes. This is the start of a 3rd term for you, so 8 years plus now in office. And one of the things that we saw last year, 2024, the homicide rate down 50%. How is that possible? And how did the prosecutor's office, how did the state attorney's office play a role in that?
Thanks for the question. So that's a data point. Only time will tell if this trend holds, but it's worth celebrating. It's obviously, I think, attributable to several reasons, and none of us are going to be able to point to a single reason, but Sheriff Waters has empowered his police force with proactive policing, and I think that's been an important contributing factor to this success. 8 years ago, as we discussed on your show, I was really intentional. My team and I were very intentional about restructuring the office and thinking about how we could use the tools as prosecutors to really act as a force multiplier to our law enforcement partners. And to that end, we developed and stood up a division called Targeted Prosecution. And it functions the way it is titled. It targets, we became really good partners with our law enforcement partners, and if they know who the people are who are pulling the triggers on our streets, we wanted to know too. So that in the event that we couldn't charge them with murder because we didn't have enough evidence, we didn't have witnesses who were cooperating, but we knew they had committed another crime, that we would target the offender and make sure that they were held accountable and we could take them off the street. So that unit has worked now for years, really focused on gang violence in our city, and has been successful in dismantling gangs that were wreaking havoc. We stood up the Crime Gun Intelligence Center with the city and with JSO, and we work with local and state law enforcement with that. We've been creative in the prosecutions that we've built, and we've been aggressive, and I think the data is bearing out, especially in our trial numbers and our conviction rate last year. Important to this is that we're picking the right prosecutions as well. So I'm proud of the work that that unit has done, and prioritizing violent crime at the beginning of my administration was a focus, and so this is nice to see these numbers trend downward.
It also kind of points out that it doesn't happen overnight, and maybe there's something we can talk about. We're going to take a commercial break first, but maybe there's something we talk about the impact of having more than a one-term official in office, and certainly getting to see some of your efforts continued here, again, 8 years now, beyond, and for another term. So stay with us. Not an easy job. We're going to keep talking about some of the successes here, but with any role, there are challenges, right? We're going to discuss those challenges with State Attorney Melissa Nelson when we come back on This Week in Jacksonville.
You're watching This Week in Jacksonville with Kent Justice.
State Attorney Melissa Nelson is with us today. Her office with jurisdiction in Duval, Clay, Nassau counties. And I want to continue spending some time talking about some of the successes that you've had here. We just talked about homicide rates going down. How about this? Going up, the conviction rate in felony trials, I understand from your office, was 90%. How does that come about, and what does that mean in terms of how effective the office is being?
I think it's a tremendous indicator of effectiveness. It means that we're trying the right cases and that we can prove the cases, that we're taking cases to trial, that we can meet our ethical standard, which is proof beyond a reasonable doubt. So I think it's also a point to celebrate. Last year, we tried a record number of homicide trials across the state, and it means that our folks are working really, really hard, because putting a case together to get in front of a jury and then spending that week in trial before a verdict, and sometimes multiple weeks, is a big investment for the individual lawyer and their trial team, and certainly the office.
So your team shared with me there were 160 jury trials. And what kind of cases, what's the range of cases that you're trying there?
Across the felony line, those are all felonies, which means that we are a circuit that tries cases. We pick juries every single Monday in Clay and Nassau and Duval, and we're constantly trying cases. So that means our judges are working hard too, because they have to obviously adjudicate these cases. And
as I understand it, that 90% doesn't include plea deals or plea arrangements, right?
No, that data point, 90% conviction rate, is for those cases that we actually tried and went to verdict.
Well, what about civil citations? I know when we initially talked some 8 years ago, this was, hey, Kent, this is something that can be used for benefit for our community. Tell me about the purpose and maybe how the money is saved through civil citations.
Thanks. So just as I talked about prioritizing violent crime, we also, to that end, we wanted to focus on making sure that kids who are caught up in the justice system as juveniles for low-level offenses, who met certain eligibility criteria, be given an opportunity for something different than coming to court and facing charges, and an opportunity for a second chance. And so to that end, all of our law enforcement partners across the circuit and the Department of Juvenile Justice together signed a memorandum of understanding. And since we did, every year after year, law enforcement is issuing more civil citations to youth than across the state average. The Department of Juvenile Justice has a formula that they use to indicate fiscal savings, and they've indicated that this program has generated or saved over $20 million of taxpayer dollars. The recidivism data is very encouraging. So, and it allows, there's lots of benefit to it, but it allows our police officers to stay in service when they're not taking a kid to book them, which can take them out of service.
Yeah, for hours.
For hours, yeah. Correct. So it's worked really, really well. It's been successful.
So I definitely wanted to talk about not just the successes, but maybe the challenges. And broadly speaking, not just in the state attorney's office, but broadly speaking, this has been a time these last few years where it's very tough to attract and retain talent. Is that the big challenge for your office these days?
Absolutely. Recruitment is, I would say, the biggest challenge facing our office. And I'm not certain exactly what gives rise to it. I have suspicion. When I was in law school at the University of Florida, following law school and taking a career in public service was considered noble. And somehow over the years, that nobility has been lost. Some of the finest judges and lawyers in our circuit started their careers at the state attorney's office. And I'll give you an example. So when I started, we had 60 law students from the University of Florida who wanted to interview with our office, and last year we had 3. And that's not unique to our office. It's across the state and across the United States, where law students, perhaps it's generational. We don't offer remote working. We can't. You have to be in a courtroom. You have to be manning a podium. We try cases which requires physical presence, so we can't offer flexibility like maybe so many other law jobs can. But really, I try to send the message that this remains a noble profession. Our job is to do the right thing, and there aren't a lot of jobs that you can get up in the morning and go to work with that one charge.
Yeah. What about having a law school in Jacksonville now with JU downtown? Is that something that can help?
Absolutely. We're very excited. So we have a great summer program for both college students and law students. It's non-paid, but it's a really great opportunity for people to be exposed to the work that we do. Over the last couple of summers, we've had several JU students. We have some in our office right now. And with the first graduating class, we're looking forward to hiring from them. And my hope is that we'll continue to be a very good partnership between the law school and us. And I try to the best of my ability to get in front of young people to talk about what a great job this is. I've spent time in private practice, and while I really enjoyed that time, there's a lot of autonomy that comes with the job that we have, and to be the voice in a courtroom for people who cannot speak for themselves is unique. You can't get that anywhere else.
Yeah, different kind of experience than
Sure.
other things you can do as an attorney. All right, I want you to stay with us. We're going to continue talking with Melissa Nelson. We're going to start talking about the goals in 2025 and beyond in this third term that she's just begun. Stay with us on This Week in Jacksonville.
You're watching This Week in Jacksonville on Channel 4.
The State Attorney Melissa Nelson is our guest here today, and we're talking about some of your goals and objectives for 2025 and beyond. And one of the things that comes up is we know the last several months, lots of students who have made school threats and then been arrested. And obviously our law enforcement is saying, hey, we have to take this very seriously. Even if you think it's a joke, it's not. What's your office able to do there in combating this?
Yeah, thanks. So the law has zero tolerance for it. It doesn't matter what the intent, if it's a joke. And obviously we have been inundated with school threat cases. They take up a lot of resources. And what we've tried to bring to the table, I work with a really talented communications team, and we've tried to do something a little different, to educate these kids. They're as young as sometimes 9 and 10 years old, making threats to a school. And so what we're teaching them is, in fact, they can use their social media platform and think their story's on private, or they can snap and think it disappears, and they can be joking. But the social media companies now have algorithms where they're constantly running, and they can pick up this threat, and they let the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security know, who let local law enforcement know, and then we have to act. So we have a whole bunch of pending school threat cases right now, and trying to discern the seriousness of those is certainly something we do, but we've brought to bear, I think, a non-traditional approach. We've done a PSA with Sheriff Waters that we're hoping will get in the hands of these kids to let them know how their social media is being monitored and what can happen. Because every word they say, it doesn't matter that they intend it as a joke. If they make a threat, law enforcement action will follow.
You know, and we've certainly been following that. We've been telling people about some of those situations. What are some of the other concerns or the focus that your office is going to have here?
So I spent last quarter really mapping out vision planning, the things that I hoped the office could achieve. Several years ago, we laid out a strategic plan, a 3-year strategic plan, and we acted on that, executed the strategic plan with almost, I think, a 97% perfection rate. That was a heavy lift. So I did a personal strategic plan for the office, and among several things that I want to do in the next term, I'm very interested in AI, both how to use it to make our office and our prosecution operations more efficient, as well as how to be on guard about how it's going to be used criminally. I just came back from a conference in California. I'm particularly interested in sextortion scams. I think it's something I want to shed a light on and start having conversations about, because I think a lot of adults don't appreciate the dangers involved with these
maybe
scams.
Even just define that. Yeah.
Sure. So these are fraud scams where threat actors, often overseas, are targeting generally teenage boys between the ages of 13 and 17 years old, developing a quick relationship with them online, friending them, enticing them to send a compromising photo of themselves, and then immediately they flip the script and begin blackmailing them. I will send this photo to your teachers, to your parents, to all of your contacts. We have multiple documented suicides across the United States of kids who immediately try to pay money but can't. So it has deadly consequences. And so I'm hoping to create an initiative partnering with our federal and local law enforcement partners. There's a human trafficking element to this, an international human trafficking element, to create an initiative that, one, really focuses on educating the public about this, Two, to the extent that we can, disrupting these organizations. And then less likely, but teaching and training investigators how to investigate these cases and follow the money and actually claw back some of the money. There have been some successful prosecutions in the Midwest. And so that's one of my goals for this next term.
Yeah, we're running out of time, but I know retail theft is something that you guys are working on too.
Yes, so while we're seeing violent crime actually decrease both in our jurisdiction and others, retail crime continues to explode, and retailers are not interested, probably for liability reasons, many of them not interested in pursuing thieves, and there's a tremendous black market. So we're also focused on partnering with our big box stores and retailers in a way to actually make it easier for them to make cases and for us to prosecute those cases.
Yeah, it's not easy on the retailer side.
No.
I know plenty of people, family members who've worked in that side as well. Melissa Nelson, I appreciate it. I'm glad we set aside the whole show so we could talk about these different elements. Thanks for spending the time with us today.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Kent.
All right, I'm Kent Justice. Thanks for watching on air on Channel 4 and the CW17. And of course, you find us online at news4jax.com. And don't forget about streaming on News4Jax Plus. All right, Jacksonville Mayor Donna Deegan joins us next time. We're also planning soon to speak, that is, with Peter Source, the publisher of FloridaPolitics.com. And I invite you to check out This Week in Jacksonville Business Edition. This episode of our podcast looks at VyStar Credit Union's appearance during the Super Bowl and efforts to connect with members through their entire life experience. You can find new episodes every Thursday at 9 a.m. and you're going to find it right now on News4Jax Plus under the This Week in Jacksonville channel.
See why every day more people are choosing News4Jax, Northeast Florida and South Georgia's #1 source for local news.